All right, so this is going to talk about the knowledge check at section 2.4.6. So the first question we had in there was identify which working directory you are working out of. So recall that when we open RStudio, it's going to default to some location. And we can get that location with getwd. And here we see that right now my RStudio is set to use the desktop as a working directory. So the next thing it asks is create a folder on your computer titled Learning R within RStudio. Set your working directory to this folder. So there's a few different ways we can create this folder. One way within RStudio is to go ahead and come down here in the environment, or excuse me, miscellaneous files pane, and we can hit this new folder. And we're just going to call this Learning R. Hit OK. And what we see now is we have a Learning R folder that popped up within my desktop directory. Okay. So now it says within RStudio, set your working directory to this folder. So I can go ahead, I could do this a couple of ways. One is I could come down here and click on this folder here and then come to more, and I could hit set working directory. Another option is to just go ahead and use the set working directory function. And here we are going to go ahead and supply it our path. So let's see, 2.6 desktop, and then my Learning R directory is right on my desktop. So now I set that, and if I go ahead and check working directory again, you can see that I have now set my directory to that Learning R folder. All right, the next question was type pi in the console and then set the option to show 8 digits, retype pi in the console, and then reset the option to 7 digits and type pi again. All right, so we can go ahead, we can take a look at pi. Pi is a built-in object that just contains the value of pi. Now, there's a default number of digits that R shows, and I think it typically defaults to 7. Now, we can change that, and we can actually change a bunch of different options with this options function. So I'm just going to go ahead and change digits to 8. So now if I retype pi, we can see that pi now goes out to 1 additional digit because the default was 7, right? So now we get out to, what is this, 8 decimals or 7 decimals. All right. So now it says go ahead and set the option back to 7 digits. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring up that options argument I did. And so I can bring up previous arguments just by hitting the up command or up arrow when I'm in the console. So then I can go back to 7, and then I can go ahead and reevaluate pi, and we see that now we get the same value that we got the first time we ran pi. All right, the next question says, type pi in the console. Note that documentation on this project pops up in the help tab in the miscellaneous display. So as noted in the lesson, if you want to get some help information on a function, you can always type the question mark and then the name of the function or the object. So here we're looking at pi, which is an object. And if I go ahead and just do a question mark before that, we see that down here in the miscellaneous files pane, it jumps to the help tab and we get help documentation that jumps out. And if we scroll down, we can see within the details pi, the ratio of the circumference of a circle to its diameter. Right, so the help file contains a lot of good information. If you want to see examples, they always provide some examples, typically at the bottom. And you can even run the example. So if I were to hit this run examples, right, then now I could go ahead and I could grab whichever example I wanted to run and then execute it within my console. All right, so the next part of the knowledge check was now check your code history tab. So if we go to the history, now I've rearranged my panes a little bit just by the way that I like to work within RStudio. So now I have my environment, history, connections, build, tutorial, all these tabs over here, which is basically the global environment pane. is now to my lower left. So I can go to history and I can see there's a bunch of different commands here. Some of these were ones that I ran earlier when I was developing other content, but you can kind of see here is where we started to execute some of the commands within this video. I did the set working directory desktop, options, get option, get working directory, set working directory. So these are all commands that I had ran previously. Now, the last thing it says here is create a new .r file and save this as my first script. And then what we're going to do is we're going to type pi in line 1 of the script, and then we're going to do the options adjustment in line 2, and then rerun pi. All right, so to do this, we can come up here and we see we have a new file option here, and we can create a whole bunch of different files. I'm just going to go ahead and create an R script. Now in the knowledge check, it said go ahead and name this script to my first script. So let's go ahead and we're going to save this. I'm going to hit the save button, and that'll pop up a window that asks you where you want to save it and what do you want to call this script. So I'm going to go ahead and name this. No, it was my first script, and we actually want to save this in the Learning R directory that I had created earlier. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so I've got my script. It's empty right now, and I've got it named my first script. If we go back, now what did it say? So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to copy this and bring it over, and I'm going to paste it in here. Now, for stuff we don't want to execute, like that's not code within our script, we can just comment that out by using a hashtag. So the first task was type pi in line 1 of this script. And then the next thing was to change the options, where digits equals 8. And then I wanted to rerun pi again. All right, so I'm going to have these as 3 separate little areas. And right now, I've got this hashtag before, which means it's a comment. They will not be ran when I execute the script. All right, so the first thing to do is pi. Now we can run this a few different ways, right? So I operate on a Mac, so I use the option and then return button. I believe it's a command return for Windows users. Another option is just to have this highlighted, and then I can come over here to this run, and you see it says run the current line or selection. So if I click on that, it's going to execute pi. So we can see over here in the console, pi is being executed, and I've got 3.141593. All right, so now what we want to do is change options, and digits equals 8. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to run that, and then I'm going to go ahead and run pi again. So you can see I can put all this in my R script. I'm going to go ahead and save this so I can save the code that I've ran. And then I can execute one line at a time, or another to highlight everything within that script and hit run. And you see that it executes each line.